Hello everybody, welcome, I'm No02, and we are talking about the deck that the bots are running. In the last update for River of Blood, they changed the cards that the bots are running in all of their decks. I've gone through literally all of the bots, burning myself with a Molotov, taking control of the bots, and I did that for all of the bots, and all of the bots are running this deck right here, very specifically here. And so we're going to go through these cards and sort of talk about how these new cards that the bots are running in their deck is going to end up sort of changing my philosophy and sort of like the corners that we can now cut as far as our own deck design when playing in solo offline mode. In addition to that, sort of noticing some new strengths that we can sort of take advantage of here with the bots, right? So we'll sort of talk about what we got here, what we lost as well at the end and things like that. Check the timestamps. We'll start at the top here, though. We have Bounty Hunter. All three of your bots on your team are running Bounty Hunter. What's nice about that is, so this is not a team effect as far as everyone gaining copper, right? So you end up killing a mutation, and then all three of your bots individually earn that 10 copper. And so for the most part, it's sort of like all of your bots are essentially running hazard pay, and maybe even a little bit better if there's a lot of mutations to be eliminated throughout that mission. You don't see any of this money until you get to the next mission, though, right? And so Bounty Hunter doesn't trigger when you enter into a hive. It keeps counting. It keeps adding up over time through the hive and things like that. But it isn't until you get to the next mission when all three of your bots then funnel that money back into you, which is actually quite nice. It's actually essentially we have more copper than we've ever had in offline mode now because of this new card that the bots are running. This leaves me with the question: do we need to run a copper card in our deck now? Do we need to? I think obviously more copper is better. The more copper you have, the more you can heal. Like, copper solves, like in real life, almost all of your problems. I'm sure of it. Right? So I think you can never go wrong with having more copper cards. But interesting, I think what's more interesting is that I think we could probably cut out having Share the Wealth in our solo offline decks and be just okay and be totally fine. Because even if we were to do that, we still end up having access to 3 Bounty Hunter cards, right? It's more copper than we've ever had. So kind of interesting here. So I think when it comes to solo decks now, it's a legitimate question. Do you have a copper card or do you not? And I think there's an argument for both ways. It's something to think about, something to consider, something that I'll be playing around with. Now, some of the team cards here. Ammo for All, Well Fed. Needs of the Many are the basic team cards that they have here. Well Fed we've always had, I think, and Ammo for All we also always had. Keep in mind, though, Ammo for All got buffed. It used to be 1% team damage. It's now 3.5% team damage. So, 10, whatever that is, 11.5%, whatever it is, you know the math. Extra team damage for both yourself, but also all of the bots. And that's actually kind of nice, just in general. Like, almost here alone, ourselves and the bots are sort of overall doing more damage than they did before. And another thing nice about the team damage is that, as far as I can tell, the team damage applies to everything. I don't know if team damage is multiplicative with like bullet damage and flat damage and accessory damage and all that stuff. But from my testing, and I'll do a video about Tala later on, but as far as I can tell, this bonus team damage applies to the bleed damage that Tala also applies as well. Like, it applies to every source of damage. It also applies to like razor wire and things like that. So literally everything that you do is being boosted by this. And so that's actually kind of nice. Needs of the Many is the new one here. Before, all of the bots were running extra life cards, but they were individual life cards. The bots had extra lives, but not Needs of the Many. So now we get 3 extra lives in solo mode. And the bots have 3 lives. There's a crap ton of lives. And I found that this is probably one of the like strongest buffs that the bots have ended up doing here. They do take a little bit of a sacrifice on their health a tiny bit here, but before, I mean, like, the bots are our meat shields. They don't take trauma damage. So, like, picking a bot up after they've been downed is totally fine. Especially because it triggers Inspiring Sacrifice. A bot still being alive throughout a mission means that they're going to have more opportunities to benefit from Amped Up and things like that. So this card, I think, ends up being, like, a huge boost for us. How many other life, like, based effects are there, right? We have Inspiring Sacrifice. Maybe we should be running Avenge the Fallen now, right? Things like that. It makes maybe what is it? A medical professional, uh, a card to run here. If we have the ability to restore those bots' lives, and they already have 3 of them, it's like there's so much value here as far as having 3 bots, each with 3 extra lives. We have 9 lives to burn through, essentially, right? Where bots, all of our bots combined equal a cat. And also, too, with the bots being able to open up loot rooms and gain access to medicine cabinets and things like that, hanging out around a medicine cabinet and getting your bots to restore their lives and things like that, there's so much value in it now. I think and this ends up being the biggest change that makes offline mode that much easier. And also, too, you just get any other effects that trigger off of a bot going down. Uh, there's so much value in it and things like that. And so, just in general, like, needs of the many is a huge benefit. It makes the bots like way more durable, way more survivable. And when it comes to completing like the secondary objective, like having all the bots alive at the end of a mission, that's way more doable now than it ever was before. It also makes me think of cards like Out with a Bang. Such a good card now because of this, right? So Needs of the Many has made some other cards that we never really considered that much, uh, possibly way more viable now. Synergize with Expiring Sacrifice. Then we have Amped Up and On Your Mark. They've always had Amped Up. They didn't have On Your Mark before at one point in time, I think. The bots have always been a primary source of ammo when it comes to solo mode. And that's still the case. The nice thing about them having On the Mark, this is sort of overkill, I would say, as far as our need for ammo throughout a no-hope solo campaign. But there was sort of the issue where if things fell apart and the bots ended up dying at some point in the mission, we would sort of run into ammo problems then, because the bots are dead. They're no longer dropping ammo for us. On Your Mark sort of solves that problem. It wasn't really a huge problem that we had, but nonetheless, it's now here. We sort of have it solved. When a horde event does trigger, the bots do benefit from the reload speed and things like that. So, like, the bots, when they start shooting, for the most part, will just keep shooting until they need to reload, and they reload faster. So overall, this sort of increases the bots' potential DPS that they can deal over the course of a long fight and things like that. It's really nice for some missions like the Handyman or Broken Bird, the missions where there's a lot of infinite horde events. Ammo is literally never an issue. And with On Your Mark now, I pretty much never fall into that area of like, come on, bots, drop the ammo. Every once in a while, you'd feel like the bots weren't dropping the ammo super regularly enough. That might still be a problem, but you don't really feel it as much now because of On Your Mark. Mark for Death they've always had, so nice bit of bonus team damage here. But here's new. Silver Bullets, I think, is new. They may have had Silver Bullets before, but I think Large Caliber is also definitely new. And Optics Enthusiast. I don't know what Optics Enthusiast does for the bots. I don't know if this actually benefits them or not in their like bot AI targeting way. I don't know how this helps them, if it does at all. It sort of feels like a wasted card. But between Silver Bullets, Large Caliber, Marked for Death, and now Ammo for All, and reload drills, again, they now reload faster. The bots' overall effectiveness in any given fight is better than it was before. They're doing, on average, more damage than they were before. I don't have any numbers to back that up, but just they have more damage cards than in the past. So hopefully they should be doing more damage than they were before. This leads me to think that like cards like Shredder are more beneficial here because again, if we can add any amount of extra damage for our bots, like Shredder is like team-based damage, those cards get more beneficial because they're multiplicative with a larger number now. Right? The bots now are running, 17.5% bullet damage, and that gets multiplicative with the 15% of Shredder and things like that. So overall, any amount of extra damage that you can do, or that you can help do for the bots, is that much better now overall. So overall, the DPS of the bots is just slightly higher than it was before. Medical Expert. All of the bots are running Medical Expert. Kind of nice. They pick you up faster. Way more relevant now because we have 3 lives guaranteed now going into any given campaign solo. Which is important to note. If you are running solo decks with extra lives in your deck, cut them out. You don't need them now because the bots are going to give you 3 of them. Bots pick us up slightly faster. This is a pretty small thing, but the bots, every time the bot ends up healing you, you recover 1 point of trauma, which is kind of nice. But in addition to that, now we have 15% healing efficiency times 3, so we got 45% healing efficiency on everything that we do. Kind of nice. This almost leads me to think that like some sort of card that gives us trauma resistance might be a little bit valuable, because if we can keep our overall health bar larger for longer, then like healing with a medkit and getting the full value out of it, kind of beneficial, kind of nice. Maybe instead of running a copper card, because we got 3 bounty hunters, we can cut out share the wealth and put in support scavenger, things like that. Maybe there's something here to sort of touch on as far as taking advantage of medical expert. I don't know if that's the case or not. So this is kind of nice. It's like a nice sort of flexible all-around card. Keep in mind, too, when a bot heals you with their pain pills or their med kit, you get that benefit of 45%. So the bots overall are better medics in general, too. Kind of a nice kind of a nice bonus as well, but nothing too dramatic, right? Nothing too dramatic here. This does need me... I do need to bring up, though, that the bots are no longer running the bolstered health, right? The bots used to run fit as a fiddle, and they used to run well rested. They're not running either of these now. So there is a lot more potential for waste here, as far as like inspiring sacrifice. One nice thing that we have sort of lost is that if a bot went down, we were guaranteed to get all of the value of inspiring sacrifice for the most part. For the most part, no matter what, because inspiring sacrifice would transfer into overheal if that was the case. So there is sort of an area now where, like, if you're doing really good, you're at max health, but that's where you're at. There's no bolstered health. So like inspiring sacrifice and some medical expert, there's a little bit of waste there. So maybe running our own fit as a fiddle or running Charisse as our main character, there's some extra value there to be tapped into if you were to have bolstered health, because of medical expert and needs of the many and was inspiring sacrifice, that we've sort of lost. Next, we move into hydration pack and padded suit. They've always had these cards. Well, actually, they didn't have hydration pack. They had it. The bots used to have canned goods, and it was sort of annoying that if you died and took over a bot, you had like no stamina. You had canned goods and you had padded suit. So the bots overall less tanky. They have a little bit less health. Between not having canned goods and now having needs of the many, the bots overall have less health. And no bolstered health. One bot would go down, which means that the other 2 bots would benefit from inspiring sacrifice. Doesn't really happen anymore. So overall, the bots are not quite as tanky as they were before, but still fairly good beat shields and things like that. Hydration pack and padded suit. And it's actually kind of nice for us if you do end up dying and needing to take control of a bot. It's much easier to sort of like sprint that final stretch and get to the end, because you have more stamina than you did before and things like that, as well as like with on your mark, because if you died and then you took over a bot, there's one less bot now to give you ammo, and on your mark again just sort of solves all those problems in general. The other big thing that we ended up losing here, and the final thing that we're going to talk about, is Avenge the Fallen. We don't have that anymore, and this was a big part of us being able to sort of like sneak out a victory, especially when it came to boss fights like a breaker fight who shows up. Having a bot go down, or even intentionally knocking a bot down on purpose to trigger 3 effects of Avenge the Fallen, would turn our grenades nuclear almost no matter the circumstances. And so there's a lot of instances where Avenge the Fallen and a couple of grenades would save us from pretty much anything. That's no longer the case. So we actually lost a lot of that potential burst damage. We lost that trick, essentially, that one trick pony, so to speak, as far as like, oh crap, we're scared, the breaker's here, it's falling apart, down a bot, throw a couple of grenades, kill the breaker instantly, reset, we're good. That's no longer the case here. And so to some extent, having the bots survive for longer is always better. But there was some instances where I was like, oh god, like we need at least one bot alive so that we can grenade dump the boss. We no longer have that ability. It's no longer that important. So in a general sense, having all three of your bots as long as possible is way more important now because we don't have this trick to fall back onto. If you can get one bot alive to the end for this final fight, then you can do it. Getting to the end now with one bot alive may not cut it anymore. You know, like you need them all alive there to put out as much DPS as possible to be alive for as long as possible, things like that. So there's more pressure on the bots being alive, just because you need them there for damage and health and meat shields. At the same time, though, that's easier to do now because we have needs in the many. So that's overall my take on the bot deck here. You can, you know, maybe cut out a copper card. They do more damage, but technically we lost Avenge the Fallen and things like that. They're less durable than they were before, but better at healing, better at combat. Some gives and some takes here, and I think overall this is kind of nice. We also used to have like mandatory PT being ran for the bots here. We don't get that anymore. No more extra stamina. There were some instances where we sort of took advantage of that and cut out a stamina card from some decks because we had the bots do it for us. Um, so some things lost, some things gained. I think overall though, this is going to be a stronger bot deck than it was before. There's some powerful things that we lost, but I think overall, from like safe room to safe room, the bots are going to be performing better and more valuable. Whereas like with Avenge the Fallen, the most valuable thing a bot can do was go down in the middle of a fight. You know, that's no longer the case. You pretty much want the bots alive as much as possible now. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. What do you guys think? Is this a better deck than the bot deck before? Or is this better now overall? Needs its many. Pretty good card. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the future.